Hi and welcome to our next episode of our walk through the Bible, where we are following the amazing story in the book of Exodus. Hope you're enjoying this, and I hope that even if you're a child or an adult, that it's helping you to see how the Bible fits together, because we're going through it in order together. So here we are, here's our picture. We're in the wilderness, in the desert. God's people have been set free from Egypt where they were slaves, and God has brought them to Mount Sinai. Last time we saw how Moses went up the mountain and God gave him the 10 commandments. Can you remember that God led his people through the desert by night time in a pillar of fire and by daytime in a cloud? Let me put the cloud here and the fire here. You see, God led them. He showed them the way to go. He told them if they should turn right or if they should turn left. And today, God still leads us the same by his Holy Spirit that lives inside Christians. So here's Moses. Here he is here. And of course, here's his brother. This is Aaron. And while Moses was up that mountain, the people were all down below. And of course, they're living in tents at the moment in the desert. And I want to put a lot of them over here, just some of them actually. If you remember, there are nearly 3 million people altogether. That is a huge amount of people that Moses is leading. Now, I wonder whether you can remember the name of Moses' assistant, the one that Moses was training. He was probably about 40 years younger than Moses. His name was Joshua. I'm going to put Joshua over here because Joshua would be trained by Moses. He would follow Moses. In fact, when Moses went up the mountainside to receive the 10 commandments, Joshua went some of the way with him. He didn't go right to the top, but he stayed and he would have watched from a distance. He would have learned, just like as disciples of Jesus Christ, we look to Jesus, we follow him, we learn from him, and we become more like him. So this is Joshua, and this is Aaron, Moses' brother. So when Moses came down the mountain, he came, didn't he, with the 10 commandments, God's instructions. He taught all the people when he came down the bottom. He also taught them, didn't he, to build God's special tent called the tabernacle. Here it is here. We saw last week that it had 2 rooms, the holy place and the holy of holies, the most special place. Inside was kept the Ark of the Covenant, God's very special box made of gold, made of wood actually, but it was covered with gold as well. And when Moses came down, he gave instructions to all the people to start building God's special tent, the Ark of the Covenant, and all the other things that will be part of it. So God's tent and God's presence here would be right at the centre of the life of the people. And God's people, they would camp in their 12 tribes around God's special tent. Now, we're going to move Aaron away. I'm going to show you what Aaron looks like now. Here he is. This is Aaron. Because after they made his clothes, he would be the high priest. And his sons would also be priests as well. So let me put a couple of them over here. They would help to look after the people and help the people to worship God in the way that God needed to be worshipped. They had to be set apart. In fact, their tribe, the tribe of Levi. I'm not wearing Levi jeans, but there is a gene that's called Levi. Well, they were set apart from the other tribes. They were holy. And from that tribe came the priests. That tribe will be the ones responsible for the holy things, for setting up God's tent, for moving it from place to place as God led them, by night in fire and by day by the pillar of cloud. There we are. So let me show you. I said last week I would show you the Ark of the Covenant. So look, here it is. This is one that I've had made. It's the Ark. My one's just spray painted with gold paint. But you see, this would have been the very special box. You wouldn't have seen it like this because it would have been covered over. In fact, on top of it, there was made of gold angels that would have covered the top of the ark. And inside, do you know what's inside? Inside here was kept the 10 commandments. Okay, let's have a look inside. Inside was kept the 10 commandments. Also, Aaron's rod was kept inside, and a small jar of the food that God provided every day for them in the desert. It was called manna. And you know, this box, the ark, was carried on the shoulders of the priests using poles like this. It would have gone through the side and they would have carried it. They were not allowed to touch the ark. If they did, because it was so holy, they would die. So there we are. That's what happened here. So Moses comes down the mountain. They make the Ark of the Covenant. Moses also counts all the people, and he counts them all, counts all the men over the age of 20. That's how we know how many men there were, and we estimate, we guess women and children as well. Well, God here at Mount Sinai called the people. They got to know God. They knew how to worship him. He called them to be his people. And he said, of all people on earth, I want you to be my special people, and I will be your God. God wanted them to know him really specially as a best friend. And he wanted them to be the ones who would one day be good news for the whole world, to tell us about the coming of Jesus. You see, Jesus would come through the family of God's people, the Israelites. So after meeting God at the mountain, God is now going to lead them to the land that God had promised Abraham all those years before. Today the land is called Israel. And so God led them in their tribes, their 12 tribes, carrying their banners by day and by night. He led them to a place called Kadesh. Can you all say Kadesh? Brilliant. At Kadesh there was an oasis. There was lots of water. And it was at Kadesh oasis that Moses picked 12 leaders, one from each of the 12 tribes. So here we are. Let's put them here. There's 5 of them. There's another 5 of them. Here's one more, and I'm going to tell you the name of this one. His name was Caleb. Say Caleb. Caleb. And you know who the other one was? It was actually Joshua. And so we have 12. And these 12 were given instructions by Moses to go into the land of Israel, because at that time there were lots and lots of other people living in the land. You see, we've travelled about 400 years now. A long time has passed since Abraham and his family, Isaac and his family, Jacob and his family had lived there. They'd all died now and they'd all moved on. And so the land is now filled. And the Bible tells us that there were lots of evil, bad people living in the land. So the 12 are chosen. They are leaders. And they're all given a job. They are to be spies. And they're to go into the land. And they're to spy the land out. Do you know how long for? Well, they will be in the land for 40 days, 40 nights. That's over a month. And they were to take their iPads with them and their They didn't have iPads or mobile phones, did they? But they were to make a note, they were to write down, and they were to watch and look and come back and give a report of what it was like in the land, what the people were like, and what the land was like too. And so I reckon all the people were really excited to wait to find out the report of the 12 spies as they came back from the land. So when they came back, Moses gathered all the people together and he said to them, okay guys, give us your report. What is the land like? Tell us about it. Well, let's put these two over here, Caleb and Joshua. The 10 spies they first of all spoke. And they came forward and they said, Moses, it is a good land. And they produced some amazing grapes. Look at the size of those grapes. Let's put them down there. They showed these amazing grapes. They said the land is great and it's fertile and it's a good land producing good crops. But, and there was a but Moses, when we saw the people, they were bigger than us, they were stronger than us, and we were scared of them. Moses, they're not going to give us this land back. Moses, this is silly. This is stupid. Moses, it was better off when we were back in Egypt. I know we were slaves, but we had cucumbers and we had melons and we had nice things to eat. Moses, this is silly. There's no way we're going to be able to go into that land and take it back. And this is what they said. When they were saying this, Joshua and Caleb, the other two spies, they stepped forward and they quietened the ten. And they said to all the people and to Moses, it is a good land, Moses. And yes, we did bring this massive bunch of grapes. And they carried it on a big pole. It is great. And the people are bigger than us. And they are stronger than us. And it does look a bit scary. But God has promised us that land. And we believe that God will keep his promises and give us the land. Now, I'm going to ask you a question. Let's take a vote, shall we? Who do you think the people listened to? Did they listen to the 10 spies who brought the bad report? Or did they listen to Caleb and Joshua who brought the good report? I think I know what you're going to say. If you're not sure about this story, you're probably going to say they listened to the 2. Because that should be the right answer. They should have listened to the 2. But they didn't. They listened to the 10. Because you see, bad news and fear had come out of the mouths of some of their leaders. And now all the people are listening to their leaders. And they're starting to rebel against Moses and against God. And they start saying, no, we were better off back in Egypt. This is silly. Moses goes to God in prayer. And he says to God, God, I've had it with these people. You know, they're not listening. They want to go back to Egypt. And do you know what God said? He said, Moses, none of the people who rebelled against me, in fact, all of them over the age of 20, they all rebelled, all except Caleb and Joshua. This whole generation, all the people over the age of 20, they will not go into the land, God said. They will stay here in the desert. I'll feed them. I'll look after them. I'll care for them. But it will be their children. And those who were born in the next 40 years, plus Caleb and Joshua, who will be the ones to go across the Jordan River into the promised land. But those who did not believe will not see. All of them, one day, eventually will die in the wilderness, except those who put their trust in me. And you know that's what happened? 40 years would pass. Everyone would get older, and all those over the age of 20 would eventually die. And Joshua would now be quite old, and Caleb will be quite old, and Moses will be even older. And you know what? Moses' brother Aaron would also eventually die, and one of his sons would become the new high priest. And God would get things ready. He would get things ready. In fact, he would say to Moses, it's time to make Joshua the new leader. He will be the one to lead the people across the River Jordan into the promised land. Guys, next time I'm going to tell you what happens next when Joshua takes over as leader of God's people.